Last season, we left Hyun-sung with these two powerful NPCs who wanted to be his masters. Both Uriah and the Emperor have expressed their interest towards Hyun-sung's potential. Our MC then started to think about what will happen to him if he becomes somebody's apprentice. He thought about being controlled and being trapped, and these ideas made Hyun-sung easily give up the offer. Hyun-sung spoke and apologized to these two NPCs. They knew Hyun-sung was about to decline and they asked why. The Emperor was confused. He thought that if he would offer anyone this kind of opportunity, they wouldn't think about declining. This is where Hyun-sung told them the reason. He told them that he's a wanderer. He enjoys freedom and adventures. And he can't have this life if he will become an apprentice. After this speech, all of them were silent. Our MC thought that his speech was effective. After all, this speech was from the manhwa he had read. He really prepared himself for this response. But then he heard something. These two have started laughing and Hyun-sung has no idea what it is about. He was starting to get embarrassed. He thought everything was going to be fine. The Emperor then told Hyun-sung about the skill book. Since they have this thing in them, Hyun-sung doesn't need to stay in his kingdom to learn his teachings. Uriah was still laughing on the side. Hyun-sung got embarrassed even more. He didn't think that this method was possible. The Emperor explained the skill book even further. They could still do the long process, but this would take too much time. The Emperor also explained that even if they have the skill book, they will not give Hyun-sung everything they learn. The master will only give the basics and it is up to their apprentice to improve the knowledge they got. Uriah stopped laughing and assured Hyun-sung that they will not take his freedom after being their apprentice. They added that Hyun-sung will have the right to improve the skill that they have spent their whole life creating and make it his own. The Emperor also added that a disciple was someone who he can pass his skills on. There will also be some times that Hyun-sung will be summoned by his master, but it will not hinder him from his adventures. After all that, the Emperor started the process of making Hyun-sung his disciple. This is a pledge that even his title as an emperor was staked. If ever this promise will be broken, he will also lose his title. Uriah also did the same thing. And now, both of them asked Hyun-sung again about their offer. And of course, Hyun-sung accepted it right away. With this, he got new titles as the Iron-Blooded Emperor's disciple and Uriah's disciple. Each title gave him 1,000 reputation points and it increased all of his stats 100 points. Hyun-sung also got this title, the Disciple of Two Heavens. Aside from the stats increase, Hyun-sung also got some buffs along with the titles. He got this passive skill that made all the swordsman's skill require 50% less mana and 50% increase in attack power. He also got this skill that made all his magic skills require 50% less mana and 50% magic power increase. His learning time for skills will also be cut in half. Another plus 10 stats was also given to him. Hyun-sung got some tears flowing down his face because he's so happy. The Emperor has also given him this book. Our MC accepted it right away because he knew that this was a legendary rank item. This is Charon's swordsmanship skill book. This will let Hyun-sung learn the Emperor's swordsmanship skill. Hyun-sung immediately used the book. This is the contents of the skill. As a passive effect, Hyun-sung will have the ability to cause an abnormality called bleeding. And it can stack just like the Nightmare skill. It also has an active skill called Stab. This is an attack that can penetrate someone's defense and it only has a 10-second cooldown. A slicing effect also comes with it. After that, the Emperor also gave Hyun-sung a chance to choose any item that he wanted as long as it was a unique grade item or below. The Emperor asked Uriah to bring Hyun-sung to the storeroom where all of the precious items of his empire were stored. She opened a portal and both of them went to it. The Emperor then said that the priest can now stop from hiding. Turns out, Libius was just hiding and waiting for his chance to assassinate the Emperor. But then these two started to talk about something. Meanwhile, Uriah and Hyun-sung were headed to the storeroom. While they were on their way, Uriah gave Hyun-sung these two books. The first book was called Introduction to Gravity 1-star to 9-star and it is a legendary item. It allows the user to learn gravity magic and it increases the user's intelligence stat by 100. The other book was called the Gravity Meter Skill Book and it was also a legendary item. This will let Hyun-sung learn the gravity meter skill. Our MC used the books immediately, and this was the first picture that came up in his head. And this guy was already dreaming. Uriah didn't stop there. She gave Hyun-sung a stack of skill books that she personally wrote. After that, she hurriedly ran towards the storeroom to give Hyun-sung some items. Hyun-sung thought that Uriah was really excited because she got herself a disciple. This overpowered mage continued her generosity. Our MC got a handful of items and relics. He got this greedy smile inside him. He was also enjoying being spoiled. Uriah also got the same smile. They were really a perfect match. She then led Hyun-sung inside a room where all the unique grade items and above were stored. Uriah told Hyun-sung that he should hurry and choose something quick because they will get in trouble if they stay here long. She also gave Hyun-sung the permission to look for anything that he liked. Our MC started looking around, but then his sword suddenly came out. His relic that was attached to his sword started acting out. Its iris failed product. This item was the first time he used the DP store. Hyun-sung thought that maybe another iris failed product was inside the room. And then he saw this thing that was hovering around. It's iris failed product number 3. And just like the first one, it also improves the item stats that it was attached to. Hyun-sung told Uriah that this was the item he wanted. Then a new quest appeared. It tasked Hyun-sung to find all the failed products, but the rewards were still hidden. After that, these two left the room. Hyun-sung also left the palace. The Emperor and Uriah were still talking about his talent, and they were glad that Hyun-sung accepted their offers. The Emperor then brought up that he knew about the iris failed product that Uriah gave to him. Uriah then made an alibi that she didn't know about that item and teased the Emperor of being stingy. The iron-blooded Emperor was kind of impressed because out of all the items in that room, Hyun-sung chose iris failed product number 3. Meanwhile, at the Empire's first granary city, Hanam, Hyun-sung went in here to hunt for more powerful monsters. He started to choose what items he will use for this hunt. He saw this Ellie's stick. It is a unique grade item that was intended for magic skills, but he can still use it as it requires level 200 to be equipped. He also saw this Killian's ring, and it has the same requirement of level 200 like the previous one. Upon bringing these two items out, a notification appeared that Hyun-sung confused these two items. Hyun-sung started thinking about it for a second, but then he decided to YOLO out. He fused these two items and it was successful. Our MC received this new item called Ella and Killian's staff, and it was a heroic grade. This staff basically fused the effects of the two items into one. It boosts the user's magic power by 500%, and the casting time for magic spells were reduced. It also allows the spell Evi's Curse to be used once a day. With all the bonus effects this item gives, Hyun-sung thought that this should be at least a legendary grade. Hyun-sung then decided to try and test his new items and skills. This guy used the gravity meter skill out in this open field. A huge magic circle appeared that almost covered the entire field. And then the NPCs and other players saw something above their heads. It is a huge meteor falling into their town. After a few seconds, a huge explosion occurred. The meteor fell down near the town and it grazed some part of it. The people were panicking. Some of them were screaming for help and needed some healers. A notification popped out that the city wall of Hanam City was destroyed, and it increased the karma points of Hyun-sung. But at the same time, he leveled up. Hyun-sung has finally reached level 100 and above, and he was given a new skill. Our MC got 2 additional skills called Thenano's Alarm Clock and Thenano's Postmonition. The second trace for his main quest was also now available. Meanwhile, our MC froze on where he was standing. He still can't believe what just happened. The range of the gravity meter skill was already something, but its destructive power was greater. And while he was still trying to get the situation, his DP points were being deducted because he got so many karma points right now. Because he exchanged his karma points for DP points, no one knows that he's the one who summoned the meteor. People around him thought that this was caused by Uriah because she's the only one who could summon a meteor. Hyun-sung then felt relieved, but he earned his lesson. He will not be blindly testing his skills without reading their description. After that, Hyun-sung moved to another location and he decided to check out the new skills he got. The first skill was the Thenano's Alarm Clock, and it is a god grade skill. Its passive effect was that Hyunsung can now set a time for him to wake up whenever his narcolepsy skill triggers. Its active skill is that it will consume 10,000 DP points and all the creatures within 100 meters around him will die. We can see that Hyunsung really liked this new overpowered skill because of his smile. The other skill was this Thenano's Postmonition. It is an active skill that has a 2-hour cooldown. Whenever Hyunsung uses this skill, it has a chance to trigger 3 dreams. A buff that will increase his gold and item rate, a buff that will increase his experience gain, and a buff that will double his attack damage. Even though this skill has a random chance, all of its effects were beneficial to Hyunsung. Hyunsung then thought that these skills were all tailored for him to level up fast. He remembered his main quest. As for the second trace, it said that he needs to defeat a demon king in a kingdom called Philaus. The king was so obsessed with becoming an immortal that he turned himself into a demon. Unlike the first one, this quest has no time limit. Hyunsung just needs to clear this before reaching level 150. Hyunsung then started making his plan on how to clear this quest. Since it has a level capped of 150, he thought that he could just focus on leveling up then just clear it when he was already near level 150. With that, Hyunsung raised both of his hands. The surroundings started to shake. This guy just summoned a bunch of meters again. He plans to speed run his way to level 150. He also started consuming a lot of mana potions to spam this skill. Meanwhile, this leader from the Block Guild was still furious about what happened on the tournament. His representative, Lucifer, has also left him hanging after losing in the tournament. This guy then tasked his secretary to find Lucifer's whereabouts, and he also told him to find Asura. Meanwhile, at the Temple of Thananos, this guy just greeted a visitor. This new character was the Pope of Thananos. The visitor was none other than the Saintess of Thananos, Han Siwa. The Pope was the one who asked Siwa to come to their temple because he has a task for her. Siwa needs to go to the Karin Empire. This is the same empire of the iron-blooded monarch. The Pope was expecting something from the Emperor. It was an item that will be important to Hyunsung when the time comes. With that, Siwa has officially received a new quest. This quest was an A-rank quest and it has no time limit. After that, the Saintess left the temple. The Pope was then left alone again, but he's glad that the temple will take care of that item for their god. Meanwhile, Hyunsung has continued his mission to level up fast. It only has been 7 days after the Empire competition, but he was already level 148. This guy has really been grinding for levels. With him being ready for the quest, he decided that it was also time to learn the Emperor's swordsmanship skill. Hyunsung changed his weapon from the staff to his sword. It's like a class change. And then they headed into the castle. But before they could enter the castle of the Demon King, he was greeted by a familiar voice. It's the Apostle. Hyunsung got annoyed just by seeing his face. But he was there to warn him about the quest. This quest will be much harder than the Wyvern's clone. That's the reason why Libius was with him right now. Some backstory about this kingdom. The previous king was known to be modest and strong, but the problem was his son. He was repulsive and jealous of his father's achievements. He eventually killed his father and took the throne. And with him ruling, it was the start of the downfall of their kingdom. That time, the Karin Empire was actively expanding its territory. And with the Philaus kingdom being their neighbor country, they refused to be subjugated. But the outcome was obvious. With the iron-blooded monarch leading the Karin Empire, Philaus kingdom lost. But as the soldiers went into the castle, they saw the Demon King's soul a fragment. The desperate king used it and made a deal with the demon. He wished for his kingdom to never fall, and that's the story of this kingdom. The emperor eventually gave up because every time he killed this king, he just got revived over and over again. That's the main reason why no one has ever dared to come and seize this kingdom. The king was an immortal and it can control demon magic. The apostle then said that this was the reason why Libius was with Hyunsung for this mission. Hyunsung got the gist of the situation. This was really difficult compared to the Wyvern's clone. The apostle warned Hyunsung once again because he knew that our MC really enjoys these kinds of battles. After a few more remarks, the apostle was gone. But instead of being scared, Hyunsung got excited because he will have a chance to get a new video out of this. With that, Hyunsung has finally started this quest. He then got a sub-story along with his main quest. This made all the experience points and item drops increased by 1.5 times. And not long after he entered the castle, these demonic soldiers started rushing towards him. Hyunsung blocked their attacks easily. He used his skill called Strike, and he brought out his dagger. With just one heat, the soldier flew to the wall. Hyunsung didn't expect this amount of power. He immediately recognized the Emperor's swordsmanship skill to be powerful. Then the party started. The soldiers started running away even though they could now surround Hyunsung. They were about to escape, but Hyunsung used his magic bullets. Those who got heat from the bullets were then affected by the black lightning. Hyunsung then used another skill called Psychokinesis of Floating Domain. His weapons started floating, and he used them against these soldiers from a distance. He also used a new skill called Slice. Hyunsung has been killing all of these soldiers left and right, but they seem to be infinite. Meanwhile, Libius continues to heal and support Hyunsung, restoring his mana and all. Our MC got annoyed and then changed his class again. He was back to Magus Yura, and this guy used the gravity meter once again. It's a bullseye. The meter fell down right in the middle of the castle. Libius was thrilled because of what's happening. The castle was now on fire. The castle was starting to crumble down. Then this commander reported that he will take care of this empire's representative, and the one he was reporting to was the Demon King. The Demon King smiled a bit because he has been waiting for an intruder for a long time. Back to these demonic soldiers. They were the ones who were now scared. They didn't know how they would defeat Hyunsung, and out of desperation, they were just charging at him. But Hyunsung continued to kill them one by one, with magic or by using his amazing swordsmanship. Our MC then noticed this room. It was heat by the meter, but it was still intact. And behind him was Libius, who was trying to lure more soldiers for his master. Hyunsung knew that he had no time to rest at all. And that's when this commander appeared. He introduced himself as the commander of Philao's kingdom, and his name was Myrndo. He told Hyunsung that he will not allow him to destroy or kill anyone anymore. But Hyunsung knew that he couldn't let this demon commander stop him, so he went and they clashed. The commander was being pushed back by Hyunsung's skill. He got desperate and used his ultimate skill. Before the commander's sword could even reach Hyunsung, our MC used another skill. It is his quick teleportation skill, and he appeared behind the commander. The commander noticed this way ahead, so he was already swinging his sword towards Hyunsung. Our MC didn't have enough time to dodge, so he blocked the attack. The commander continued attacking Hyunsung. Every single time, Hyunsung was able to dodge or block his attacks, until Hyunsung got an opportunity when the commander's sword got thrown out. Hyunsung immediately used his Heavenly Thrust skill and slashed the commander. He also used his Nocturne skill, and Black Lightning struck the commander. With that, the commander was defeated, but he still wishes that his king may survive. After watching this fight, the remaining soldiers started to run for their demonic lives, but they were already attacked by our MC. Hyunsung then used his telekinesis skill to collect all the item drops from these soldiers. Libius was still amazed at how Hyunsung annihilated all of his enemies. And then, these two finally entered the boss room. The pressure was already heavy. The Demon King was patiently waiting for them. Hyunsung already acknowledged the power of this demonic king. He asked Libius if he could really stop his immortality, and this disciple said that he can seal it. The Demon King then stood up. The height of this king was no joke. He stood 4 meters high. Hyunsung thought that this boss would be much quicker than the Wyvern's clone. Hyunsung used the effects of his Belt of Dreams. He needed to be more careful now against this boss. Meanwhile, Libius was busy sealing the immortality skill of this Demon King, and after some time, he finished his chant. Hyunsung quickly dashed towards the boss because he couldn't waste any chances he got. But then this happened. The Demonic King bowed in front of Hyunsung. Our MC was caught off guard. The Demonic King pleaded and begged Hyunsung to kill him. It also started crying. This disappointed Hyunsung so much. He found out that the Demon King had enough. He had been living for so long inside this dead castle, and now he wanted it to end. Hyunsung was still annoyed because he didn't get the chance to fight someone stronger than the Wyvern's clone. In the eyes of Libius, His master was so strong and powerful that his opponents were already cowering against him. Hyun-sung knew that he had to do it, so he chose to grant the Demon King's request and raised his sword. But before his sword could even graze the Demon King, a series of notifications came out. It says that the legendary egg that he got a long time ago wanted to go out of his storage. Since Hyun-sung was still confused, the egg decided to come out on its own. The egg was in a hurry. It even copied Hyun-sung's telekinesis skill just to get out. The egg asked Hyun-sung if it could absorb the Demon King's ferment. And upon absorbing it, the egg will inherit the Demon King's power. This egg asked Hyun-sung again. Our MC tried asking it one more time about its intention, and the egg really wanted to do it. Hyun-sung consulted Libius about it, and he said that the power of the Demon King has nothing to do with the quest. With that, Hyun-sung thought that it was okay to let the egg absorb it. The egg was then given the permission to absorb the fragment and went in front of the Demon King. Since the Demon King had no intention of fighting, the egg peacefully did its job. The Demon King was also happy because his wish was granted. But after this, the egg started to hatch. Hyun-sung was amazed by what he saw. The mysterious egg has finally hatched, and this baby with a demon outfit came out from it. Libius was captivated by the baby's cuteness, and so was Hyun-sung. This baby was also able to talk right away. Hyun-sung recognized this creature's rank. It was a legendary ++, which means it was more powerful than the gravity meteor and the Emperor's swordsmanship. Hearing this, the baby boasted about its charm as well. This was the pet information for this creature right here. It still doesn't have a name, and it has a growth type rank. Its level and stats were still unknown, but it already has a lot of skills. This pet also has Thanano's power, so it was much more powerful than normal pets. Hyun-sung noticed the growth type on its rank, meaning it can evolve up to the rank of a demigod. This pet also has the soul gluttony skill, and it can consume a boss soul once per in-game day. It also has the skill gluttony, in which it can absorb its enemy's skill, and this has a cooldown of 30 in-game days. An overpowered pet for an overpowered MC also has the skill copy ability, which allows it to copy abilities. Hyun-sung was already amazed because this thing could even copy his dragon language skill or chant less. And on top of all that, this thing has the immortality skill. It will get resurrected immediately, and it has a cooldown of 10 seconds. After reading all the skills, the pet immediately hugged Hyun-sung. It was so happy because its master was so cool. At the same time, the notification saying that Hyun-sung has cleared his quest appeared. Our MC also reached level 150. The disciple of Thananos also appeared to give Hyun-sung's reward and clues for the next trace. But before he could do that, the disciple saw Hyun-sung's new pet. The disciple was captivated as well from its cuteness. He even praised this little thing for absorbing the Demon King's fragment. After a while, the disciple presented Hyun-sung's rewards. But our MC looked disappointed from what he saw. These were his choices for the rewards right now. An authority called Conductor of Death and God's Jade Mat, a god relic. Hyun-sung was already annoyed because the disciple told him to pick quickly. These were the descriptions for the rewards, and please bear with me as I want you guys to get the gist of these skills. The Conductor of Death skill was an active skill that nullifies all the damage the user gets for 1 minute. It also boosts the user's attack power, but the catch was the user will not be able to use any magic skills. 5 boss souls or 5 levels will also be consumed upon using this skill. Hyun-sung was impressed with this skill because it will really come in handy, even though he could only use it once a month. The disciple then interrupted Hyun-sung on reading the descriptions because he needed to tell him his next quest. The disciple told Hyun-sung that he needs to go to the Karin Empire. He should meet the Emperor and acquire 2 relics. The disciple also warned Hyun-sung about the Emperor. He doesn't have any idea that Hyun-sung has already met him, and that same Emperor became RMC's master. Hyun-sung confirmed this information from Libius. The disciple really has no idea. With this, our MC has decided to go back to the Karin Empire. Libius, on the other hand, thought that he was forgetting something important. Notifications saying that Hyun-sung has cleared the story dungeon appeared. The castle will also be destroyed as soon as they leave the place. After a while, Hyunsung was already back in the Karin Empire. He found out that the relics he needed were already sent to the Pope of Thananos. This was the same quest that Han Siwao got last time. But instead of giving them to Hyunsung, she brought them to the temple. Libius bowed his head and apologized to his master. This was his idea in the first place. Hyunsung also found out that if he goes to the temple, it would take him 30 in-game days with him running at full speed. This annoyed Hyunsung because he can't also use any teleportation scroll to get there. The Emperor then offered him a flying boat that he could use to get there faster. Hyunsung was happy to accept the offer. And while he is traveling, he'll use this time to train. With that, the Emperor will inform Hyunsung when the flying boat is ready. A short epilogue from this chapter. The pet asked Hyunsung to give it a name. Hyunsung thought that the baby was a boy and then he found out that she was a girl. Hyunsung tried consoling her feelings because, to be honest, she really looked like a boy. After that, Hyunsung named her Fanon and she was so happy about it. Meanwhile, at the Hero Guildhouse, Rin was looking at the applications they got since the competition, and there were a lot. And while she was doing that, Yoon and Hyuna interrupted her. Hyuna has something to tell her. This thing was about Hyuna's brother. Turns out, he wanted to check and look around the guild first before he joined them formally. Yoon was startled upon hearing this. She already has thought this through. She thinks that Hyuna's brother was Hyunsung because last time, our MC told her that he knew someone from their guild. Yoon knew that her sister still had no idea about this. She thought that maybe Hyunsung was planning to tell his sister that he was Asura, and this girl has no idea that Asura was her older brother. Yoon then stated that she would like to meet Hyuna's brother as well. She also got Rin to meet Hyuna's brother. After that meeting, Hyuna came into her brother's room. She told her about it and that Hyunsung will be meeting Rin and Yoon tomorrow. Hyunsung really is planning to tell Hyuna about his identity in the game. Our MC gladly accepted and confirmed that he will meet them tomorrow. After that, Hyunsung has continued to grind and train for more. He had been using the gravity meter ever since. And right now, Hyunsung is already level 160. This process got a lot easier because Libius uses a wide-range provocation skill on the monsters around them. Hyunsung then told his disciple that he needed to go now. Libius got sad. He's still bearing the burden of his mistake about the relics last time. Libius also needs to hide himself while Hyunsung is still at the meeting. Our MC also told this to Thana. She promised that she'll be quiet along the way. Seeing this cute scene, Libius also tried his luck on clinging into his master, but all he got was this huge explosion. At this bakery cafe, Hyuna met with her brother. She told Hyunsung that Yoon and Rin will be late for a while because they have something to do first. At the same time, Hyunsung received a personal message from Yoon informing him about them meeting him. She gave Hyunsung time in case he has something to tell Hyuna first. But then, Hyuna noticed Thana. This pet's cuteness got into Hyuna. She was still holding her voice until Hyunsung told her that she could now speak. This baby introduced herself to Hyuna, and while they were waiting for Rin and Yoon, Hyunsung gave Thana a soul candy. Thana thanked her master and she happily ate the soul candy. And then, these two finally arrived. Hyuna saw them and greeted them both. Rin can't seem to believe what she saw. Hyuna's brother was Hyunsung. Hyuna was about to introduce them to each other. Hyunsung and Rin were just about to explain something to her. But then Hyunsung suddenly felt something. A meteor hit the cafe, and Hyunsung shielded them from the debris. Someone then shouted Asura's name. This startled all of them. It was Uriah, and she was just looking for her disciple. With this, Hyuna got confused. Uriah just introduced herself as her brother's teacher, and on top of that, she called her Asura.